Welcome to the Ultimate Coach Podcast, Conversations from Being, inspired by the book, The Ultimate Coach, written by Amy Hardison and Alan Thompson. Join us each week with the intention of expanding your state of being, and your experience will be remarkable. Remember, this is a podcast about being. It is a podcast about you. To explore more deeply, visit theultimatecoachbook.com. Now, enjoy today's conversation from Being.
Welcome to the Ultimate Coach Podcast. Today I'm here with Karl Hebenstreit, who is the author of How to Take Care of Business with the Enneagram. And, I just found out about the children's book that you wrote also. Nina and the Really, Really Tough Decision. Yes, Nina and the Really, Really Tough Decision. And I love that you've created a book for us to raise our children differently and run our businesses better. And that's why I invited you to read the Ultimate Coach book when we first met. And I'm just curious, what was your greatest takeaway? I know you saw a lot of synergies in the work that you do. And I told you that the leadership team actually uses the Enneagram, so that we can work really well together. So what did you see?
So a lot of the takeaways are really foundational to change, really. So it's, first of all, readiness. The coachee's readiness and willingness to commit to the process of coaching and growing and developing and changing. So I think that was one key takeaway. And the other key takeaway was that relentless focus on whatever the change or the goal is that needs to happen and putting it out there in the universe and using your network, using your connections, using people you never even thought would be able to help you reach that goal. And just that whole humanity, the coming together to help people, reach whatever goals that they have and just be better.
Yeah. And I'm hearing you in there talking about seeing the world as possibility and everyone that's in your world as a co-creator. Is that accurate?
Yeah, your network. Absolutely. Because story after story that Steve was talking about was connecting people that never would have met otherwise, that would have some sort of impact in their lives to be able to make the difference or make the growth happen or make the vision a reality.
Yeah. And so for yourself now, I'm going to just read this. There's some instructions on the back of the book that says we should read this as if it's about ourselves, right?
Yes.
So who would you need to be more loving? We just had a whole conversation about that. And, who would you need to be a more effective parent and all these things. So when you read those instructions and then you started reading the book for yourself, what shifted in your life?
Being even more open to possibilities, to understanding people, to understanding their different ways of thinking, of being and loving. So just understanding that it's going to be different and the people are different and that we need to celebrate those differences as well as understand them as ways of continuous love, of ways of continuous support in their own way, as opposed to differences that will divide us.
Yeah.
So much more openness and less judgment, for sure.
Yeah. And so how are you infusing that into your work too, as a executive coach yourself?
So one of the principles of executive coaching is the love of your client, right? Loving your client for where they are and supporting them in everything that they want to do, not judging them. So it's just that constant reminder of I understand, especially when using the Enneagram and knowing where they're coming from, what's motivating their behavior. So understanding that and loving them for that, and then helping them get even better. So it's not judging them. It's not putting them in a box. It's not doing anything that's going to prevent them from reaching their goal, but honoring where they're coming from and then expanding that.
Let's talk about that. I want to talk more about the Enneagram. So let's connect the worlds of being and the Enneagram. When you say, not judging your clients and, and loving them more and everything, the state of being that, let me see, how do I want to ask this question? Like, what's the bridge between the worlds of being loving and knowing that your client is a number 8, for example?
So it's honoring that. It's really, especially if I am not, regardless whether I share their core type or not, it's understanding why they may be viewing or approaching the situation the way that they're doing it, and helping them to also open up their minds and hearts to other opportunities and possibilities of approaching the situation, rather than that automatic default that may get them into trouble, because this is not the time to do that. So it's understanding and loving that part about them and expanding it even more, so that part is going to be helpful in certain situations, maybe not this one. And let's keep it, but let's expand as well. So it's not getting stuck, really. It's not getting stuck in our old ways, our comfortable ways. Yeah.
Yeah. And for those of the people listening, can you explain to them what a number 8 is?
Oh, so the 8 is the boss, protector, or general. They're really, really great at leading, executing, delegating, getting things done. Very similar to the type 3, but the 8 tends to have a lot more passion and energy and force and just really force of nature, really. So it can sometimes be overwhelming to other people or intimidating to other people because of their forcefulness and the energy and the passion they bring to a problem or a meeting or just a relationship. So it's honoring that, understanding that, and getting to why do they need to be that way, and how can we create a more comfortable environment where they can then access. With the Enneagram, you're a core type, you have a core type, but you're also able to access all the other 8 styles as well. So the 8 automatically goes to 2 under comfort and to 5 under stress. So how can we get them to incorporate more of that 2-ness and to soften their approach and their power and their energy, so that they're in a much more comfortable space, as opposed to I don't want to call it a reactive space. So in the creative leadership circle, it would be like your reactive state that's automatic. Mm-hmm. So how do we not fall victim to our pre-wiring, our hardwiring of acting a certain way, and just to have that wiring really go to all the other parts of the Enneagram as well, so we can access all 9 numbers appropriately.
Yeah. So it's like a full self integration.
It is. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you share your story with how you landed on the Enneagram and creating that in the world?
Absolutely. So I was in human resources, and I was wanting to expand and go into organization development. So I decided I would go and pursue a PhD in organizational psychology. And little did I know that would change my life. I don't know how premeditated that was. I just knew that I needed to further my education, expand my boundaries, and find out more. And so I ended up at the Aligned International University. Before it was Aligned, it was California School of Professional Psychology. Mm-hmm. In California, in Alameda. And then they moved to San Francisco. And then there was a merger between schools, and that's how it became Aligned International University. And they had a PhD program in organizational psychology that I was able to do part-time and work full-time during the day. So one of the courses that I took, the professor was friends with Helen Palmer, who is a big name in the Enneagram. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know anything about the Enneagram at the time. I was a Myers-Briggs person. That was the big thing at the time.
Oh, wow. Were you?
Yes, I was. Everything was Myers-Briggs back then.
Yep, I remember.
And, yes. And it has its wonderful applicability, and it also has its limitations, just like every system does.
Mm-hmm.
And so Helen Palmer came in and she did it was one class. It was, I forget whether it was an hour or an hour and 20 minutes or whatever it was, introducing the Enneagram to us in a system where we basically read these 9 paragraphs and we self-selected what type we thought we were. So it was far enough in the program where I picked my type. I'm like, yes, I'm a 7. And all my classmates were like, you're not a 7, you're a 2. Because everyone wants to be a 7. You don't see yourself. Yeah, so we don't want to be the type we are. That's when we know we're that type. We don't. When we find the type that we don't want to be, that's the type that we know that we are, because that's the stuff that we don't like about ourselves, right? So so I do have 7. I do access my thinking style through 7 for sure, and I can show up as a 7 from time to time. A lot. So yes. So
be honest.
Yes, a lot. So they did this thing you're not supposed to ever do. You're not supposed to tell someone their type, but it was great because it challenged me. And then I ended up taking a more valid assessment. There was an assessment called the IEQ-9 through Integrative Enneagram Solutions. And that landed, of course, that resonated that it was 2. And I've taken it again and it was 2. So yeah, your type is your type for life, by the way. So it doesn't change. And
unlike Myers-Briggs.
Yeah. Your Myers-Briggs can change. What does change, though, is your ability to access the other 8 styles as you focus more and more on development. And what also changes is that you're not your core type all the time. Under stress, you take on other characteristics. So earlier we said the 8 can go to 2 under comfort. Mm-hmm. That line that connects the 8 and 2 means that the 2 goes to 8 under stress. So the opposite is true. For when one type goes to another type for comfort, that type that they go to will go to them under stress. So it's the opposite, the flip.
Okay.
So I went to this class. I heard about the Enneagram. I'm like, wow, this is life-changing because this is about motivation. It's not about just behaviors that, like all the other systems are just talking about behaviors that you're going to see. You're going to see this person be more introverted. Okay. You're going to see this person be more extroverted. Okay. You're going to see this person make decisions based on facts. Okay. What's motivating that? What's motivating their introversion, their extroversion, their decision-making, their view of the world, their timing, their relationship to timing, the J versus the P and all that stuff, the time orientation. So it just opened up my eyes because it just was that foundational, motivational factor that was driving all those behaviors that all the other systems are talking about. And it also opened my eyes up to the fact that we are not addressing this in our organizations. We are only rewarding certain types that we have greater value for based on our culture and what our country is valuing. And we are devaluing or undervaluing the contributions of these other types who we're in effect excluding from the organization because we're not doing everything we can to make the organization an appealing, inviting, and inclusive place for them. So honoring those diverse perspectives, those diverse motivations, the diverse input, and we're shutting it down and shutting it out. So how can we create an environment where we can be more accepting and celebrating and inclusive of these diverse perspectives that we need in order to have successful organizations, families, relationships, and on the list goes on, obviously, so that we can create better products and services to meet the needs of the diverse populations that we serve.
Yeah.
So that's really where it came from. That's my introduction to it. And I just got so enamored with it. Thank God it was early on in the program that I was then able to gear all of the other classes that I was taking towards helping me in the ultimate dissertation on how to help organizations to attract, retain, and motivate employees using the Enneagram principles.
Yeah. And that's so important. I mean, it's always been important to be inclusive, right? Because the fact is the world is diverse, right?
Yeah.
But now that we are more aware, or I would say, what would you say? Like we've been forced to be aware.
Maybe awakened, because we have all that diversity within us as well. It's just that what was nurtured and what was shut down, right? In our childhoods, because of our culture, because of the society, because of everything that was going on around us. So we've been taught to be the way that we are and shut things down and not accept certain things about us and focus on these other things that we've allowed to water and nurture and grow, which may not be as healthy.
Yes. So that compartmentalization is really affected the way we're being. And I agree. This is like an awakening. After we met, there was an event surrounding the Ultimate Coach book. We have various events, and so we had one in India called the Ultimate Experience India Edition. And there it was really a reawakening of, I think I would call it like an East meets West when it comes to being, right? So all those parts where historically one philosophy is superior than the other, it was no more. It was just a beautiful synergy of being,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there was one very recently, just like a couple of weeks ago. Is that the one you're talking about? Was there one before that too?
No. This was in February.
Yes.
Yeah. So this one, it was such a beautiful awakening. I love that word that you chose, because it was, we've always had our different ways of being, but just to see like all of humanity, together being love,
Right.
and I see your work as a way that makes it super accessible for organizations to integrate that seamlessly into their work, because, right, people don't like to talk about, the diversity within, never mind the diversity that we see with our eyes,
Exactly.
So optics is a thing.
It is.
And so when people stop compartmentalizing within, what is it that you observe? Who are they being?
They're being equals. They're honoring the equality and the sameness that we have, that each of us has with each other, as opposed to the distinction or the differences. So we're not seeing ourselves as, oh, I'm a 1, I'm a 2, I'm a 3, I'm a 4, whatever it is. I am all those numbers at different times, and I can be, and I can choose to be those numbers at different times. It's a choice, right? I am not going to be a victim to my automatic nervous response system that says I'm going to be this at this time, and when under stress, I'm going to be that, and then when I'm comfort, I'm going to be this other one, because it's an automatic line. I get to choose how I show up and how I am, how effective I am in every single situation. I am not going to just be an automatic response robot to my pre-wiring, my hardwiring. And it's difficult. It's very difficult to do that, because we don't learn this early on. Most of us don't learn this early on. We learn this when that hardwiring is really hardwired.
Yes.
And it's much more difficult to rewire. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I when you said really hardwired, I'm thinking, you remember when we had to go from, I'm not even really sure what we used before for telecommunications, and then move to FiOS. Do you remember all the road work that you saw?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so it's like that kind of excavation happening.
It is. It is. Yeah. Just as much destruction that needs to happen before the reconstruction happens. Yes.
Yeah. And try to avoid breaking the water lines and the electrical lines and stuff like that. So, and those things have to still remain. I love how you're saying that it's a choice, right? And also you, at the beginning, you were talking about commitment.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk more about like what that commitment looks like when we are shifting our compartmentalization?
So usually, always actually, I would say that commitment will be a result of pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a pain, something that is truly painful that is causing someone to need to do something differently, to change. And that's the readiness part. When is someone ready for it? They're not going to be ready if everything's going great, if they're succeeding, if they're accomplishing everything they want, if they feel whole, if they feel like all their relationships are great and they have everything that they've ever imagined and envisioned, and just feel complete and have spiritual awareness and just feel like they're connected to everything they need to be connected with. When the pain of not having all those things in place exceeds the comfort level and is perceived to be greater than what it's going to take to change, the pain of change, then that person is ready. So that's why in the book, you see people who are executives, people who are high level, that have achieved many things in their lives. They're not 20-year-olds. They're not, Well,
there was one that was in his 20s, but everybody else was old. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And some of the people that were coached were early on because they were mentored. They were really being mentored. Exactly. But a lot of times people go through life automatically with expectations that have been put upon them by their parents, society, the institutions they've gone to, whatever it is. And they don't recognize that there's more out there until they do, until that pain comes into play. And then they realize, I need to do something differently. I can't continue at this pace. I can't continue at this level of greed or whatever it is. I'm wanting more and more and more, but it's not the right more. So it's when we've gotten to that point of readiness, that's when we can actually make the change. And then the focus comes into play where we need to focus on something different. We need to quit our focus on what was causing us the pain that we're so comfortable with, because that's what our entire lives we've been focused on, and then focus on something that's different. In fact, many things that can be different. So that's that reminder, that constant reminder, that daily reminder, those affirmations, the document, right? Where you have to remind yourself, this is where I really should be going towards, not these other things that I was focused on before that I didn't even know I was focused on because it was so ingrained in me. I need to rewire. I need to refocus. I need to change direction, change the navigation, change the map, change whatever the analogy is that you want to use or the metaphor. So that's the importance of the focus and the constant reminder of that new focus. Because without that focus, without the reminder of it, we're going to just go back to those automatic responses and that had served us well up until the point where the pain was too great.
Yeah. I love that you brought the document in there, because that's true. That's exactly what that is. That's the result of excavating all those poisons, forgiving yourself, releasing the judgment and, reemerging committed to being your declarations. So
exactly.
Yeah. Karl, thank you so much for being on the Ultimate Coach podcast today. Is there anything? Yeah. I mean, it's like I see the world's becoming a better place through your work and through your state of being. Is there anything else you'd like to put into this space?
And you mentioned this earlier, and I think it's a great reminder. We need to forgive ourselves for being human, honestly, for all the things that have caused us to get to the point where we are, that need us to then have to change because we didn't know any better. There was that wonderful Maya Angelou quote that you do your best until you know better. And then when you know better, you do better. Right.
Yes.
So we've been doing our best based on what the world has given us and what we've focused on based on our situations. And once we understand that we can be better and we do the work to be better, then we can be better. We're never going to be perfect. and we need to forgive ourselves for that. But we can always strive for it, for a better version of ourselves. Yeah.
100%. Thank you so much. I'm Cordelia Gaffar. Thank you for listening to the Ultimate Coach podcast, and share this with another heart and share this with another being.
Thank you for listening. If you know someone who would benefit from today's conversation, please share this podcast with them. Also, we invite you to visit theultimatecoachbook.com so you can continue your personal exploration of being. There you will find links to join our wonderful community, get your own copy of the Ultimate Coach book, and more. Simply go now to www.theultimatecoachbook.com. That's www.theultimatecoachbook.com. The link is also available in the show notes. We appreciate your support. Be blessed. Be you.